Secret friends, unite!
One. Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 417. This is our guide to the geek side, and I am Todd Oxtra, one of your hosts, joined by a certain man who's filling in for Charlie Carden, who is now returning from the Romulan Ocean, but he needed a little break, needed a quick breath, but he'll be back next week. And the guest this week is a returning champion. He's been on SFU before, and that is Mr. Chris CJ from 1 Hour, One Decision. Chris, thanks for coming back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Always great to do episodes with you and talk about all geeky things because I love it. I love doing that with you, Todd.
Yes, and I know Charlie would be so nervous because we might talk about video games. We're not going to do that. We did that before. We were chatting up about video games beforehand. But you know what? Maybe we'll have Chris on again to co-op mode to talk more video games in the future because it's always fun to do that. But you know what? We're going to talk about all things geek, everything but video games on this podcast and cosplay. Those are two caveats. And so, Chris, I think we're ready to get going. One of the first things we need to do is thank our Patreon. So Patreon, we're about 5 weeks in. We're having a great time with it. We're doing a lot of new content. So check it out at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. See what we have there. We just dropped the most recent episode of Spinner Rack, which is all things comic books. We did TMNT, The Last Ronin. We did that with Sean Capri and John Bernardo as our special guests. It was a lot of fun. Great comic book. Check that out. There is a 2-minute preview on Patreon. If you're not a member, you can see that if it's something you're interested in. So, and with that, we want to thank our patrons, our best bud, Jamie Prinky. Thank you, Jamie, for coming along for this geeky ride. We want to thank our BFFs, Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias, and also Missy Merchant. They have been along for the ride the longest, and we hope you are all doing well. And once again, let us know if you want to hear anything on our podcast. And by all means, use your veto if you think we should not talk about something, because we would love to make sure we're covering the things that you like. You know, but a veto, it only goes so far. I think you get it once. You want to be careful. It's like a lifeline. And what is it? You want to be a millionaire? Is that what they lifeline? Phone friend?
Yes. Once
yeah,
yes,
yep, exactly. 50-50. So be careful with that. So Patreons, once again, check out if you're not a Patreon right now. And if you are a Patreon, hopefully you're enjoying the content. And by all means, you're still going to get all the free stuff if you're not a Patreon, but you'll get some good stuff if you are. So thank you for listening to my pitch. And now on to one of our favorite parts of the show, Chris. This is where we pick a cover based on the episode number of the show. So I picked one, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen this comic before, but it is a gem. And that is Metal Men number 17. This comic book cover is straight out of the, I'm guessing, 60s, because it has word balloons, too much things happening on the page. You don't know what's going on. Apparently, we've got the Metal Men, who were a creation of the 60s, where this doctor made all of these robots called the Metal Men, and they were all like ink. We had iron and ore and different elements, and they had different special abilities. They're not really well known, but this doctor, though, that made them, essentially what we're seeing in this comic, Chris, is a little bit interesting because the cover says, it says, read, I married a robot. The mad tale, even electric brains are reading. And on the background, you've got the Metal Men in a web saying, stop him. Doc's hypnotized. He doesn't realize he's about to marry an evil robot, the robot who trapped us. And then it says, the unique Metal Men always wanted their inventor to marry a robot, their own Tina. The trouble is he's marrying the wrong robot. So Chris, based on this cover, does a marriage happen? Does it happen to the right robot? And do the robots get out of their spider web for some reason?
I'm gonna say yes. It all gets resolved by the end of the comic because it's that time. It's that time period where there's all this. There's conflict and resolution, all packaged in one nice book. That's what I'm hoping for. But
Now, based on that, though, do you think like any of the plot lines actually carried over to the next issue?
I don't. It doesn't feel like it. I don't know. Maybe the through line is just like the metal men trying to hook up their inventor with some other person. I don't know. That's probably the only through line that I could see throughout this.
It's kind of creepy that he made a sex bot.
Yeah.
Well.
Hey, they always. It seems like it's always been someone's imagination.
It does seem like a sitcom, right? Like, oh, I made my wife.
Yeah.
Or Small Wonder. Remember that TV show Small Wonder back in the day? You don't remember that? With this family the father of the family invented a robot who was a little girl named Vicky.
Yes,
and
I think
so weird.
So weird.
So weird. There you go. Check out Small Wonder, folks, after you're done reading this comic book, of course. Yeah. This one might be on DC Universe Infinite if you have that subscription. Oh. If not, check your local comic book shop. They may have one hidden away in the back corner. Ask about Metal Men 17, the one with the sex bot. Oh, well, that is the beginning of our show. But now we got to get into the most exciting part of the show, as most people would say. And that's our news with Madam Webb. So without further delay, Madam Webb, take it away.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. My goodness, Madam Webb, are you excited? The NCAA tournament's just upon us. I'm a huge basketball fan. Big Ten tournament's happening. I don't know where Michigan State's going to land, but I'm so excited. And you know what? This is your opportunity to shine. You're going to break out your old mascot costume, the sexy senior citizen. You're going to be out there. Hopefully don't break a hip and have a good time. Keep it clean, Madam Webb.
Keep it clean.
Chris, you got a basketball team you're a fan of?
I don't really follow college basketball. I do follow the NBA, but I mean, it is an exciting time though, because everyone does seem to get really interested in basketball, which, I didn't realize that you were a fan of basketball, so that's cool to know that.
My favorite team of all time is the Bad Boys, the Pistons of the 80s.
Oh, okay.
I've moved to Minnesota since then, so my heart is now with the Timberwolves, and I'm hoping one day they will be good, because they were good essentially 2 seasons ago. Oh, no, last season they made the playoffs. They made these bad trades to get Rudy Gobert, who that was a bad trade, I think. And Cat is probably never going to appear. But you know what? I'm excited for it if they ever turn it around. I love college basketball, the NCAA tournament. It's one of the favorite events I love. So I know we're probably putting a lot of nerds to sleep who don't like the sports ball. So we'll stop there just to make everyone happy. But go sports.
Go sports. Woo.
All right. Well, the first story today is an interesting one. Apparently, we're going to get a Stranger Things play that's going to debut, and it's going to be called The First Shadow. It's a prequel that explores the origins of Joyce, Hopper, and other characters. Takes place in 1959 Hawkins. So if you remember, Stranger Things takes place in the 70s. So 80s, sorry, 80s. So 59, this is essentially their parents' story, them being in high school as well, I assume. And apparently Netflix is supporting this, and it's going to be in London's West End. And, this will be interesting. Beyond that, we've got it's being written and directed by Emmy winner Stephen Daldry. And beyond that, I don't know much about it, if it's going to be a musical, because if it was a musical, Chris, I would find my way to London to watch it because I love musicals.
Hey, I mean, it's 59, so it's like, what are they doing, like a Grease Lightning kind of like?
Oh, musical? Wow, that is so weird to think about it. That would be kind of like maybe it's that era between like the 50s to 60s. So yeah, it's not exactly hippies. It's not like, so that they could play with it if they really wanted to. That wouldn't be like crazy? Like it's Grease, but Stranger Things.
Aliens.
Exactly.
No, because I guess that's the interesting part. Like, will there be some sort of tie-in with the Upside Down in there? Because obviously Joyce and Hopper, they don't know anything about it back then. They barely know about what's going on right now. So it's like,
Exactly. And this is interesting too, because it's going to also include Bob Newby. So Bob, who died who is dating Joyce, Henry Creel, Vecna, which if you watch Lost, that's kind of cool. So we'll see. But obviously, it's going to miss the kids that we all know and love. It's going to miss some of the other characters we've come to enjoy. But maybe it's going to be more about how, the portal, how it got there, all of those things. Maybe there's some early warnings of how that will come about and what will happen from it. But yeah, because I'm trying to remember when Vecna actually occurred. That would have been in... Well, 11 would have been how old? So not that. I mean, so that stuff all happened after. So I don't know. It's time is a weird bubble for me in this when it comes to it. Right. But yeah, I think this is cool. Going beyond, taking Stranger Things and making it everything. Could be good, could be bad. And I'll probably never know, because unless they put it on Netflix, which maybe they could, maybe they would.
I mean, hey, look, if Netflix is producing this or in some ways involved, then why not? Why can't we get this on the streaming service? Yeah,
absolutely. Did you see that Chris Rock's performance last night on Netflix? That was their first live telecast.
Oh, so they're testing waters with this stuff.
Why not? Like HBO, when they used to drop their comedy specials and things like that. But doing something live, that's kind of cool, and it opens up the door for must see. You actually have to be at Netflix at 9 p.m. at night to watch this thing, kind of like watching The Last of Us or Game of Thrones. So,
right. Which this is, because they've always been just either dumping episodes all at the same time, or not having people allowing people to just consume the content at their will. Whereas Amazon Prime, and to your point, HBO and stuff like that, have been drip feeding us episodes. So I don't know. It's interesting because I thought that was Netflix's whole thing. Hey, we give you all the episodes right now. You don't have to wait for anything. Now they're kind of well, let's see if this works for us too. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that was the hallmark, because when Netflix originally dropped their streaming part, they didn't have any original content. It was all old heritage stuff. So it was there to be binged. So it wasn't necessarily their intent. It was just, well, we've got 5 seasons of Seinfeld. We're not going to only put out one a week. They're there. Right. So it was and then it kind of got into this mode of their first series was House of Cards. Yeah. That was dropped all at once. And I think they know it's biting them in the butt. And it's going to be hard to break people of that, because now if you see how much content they've got, and a lot of people don't watch things the first week, it's probably going to get canceled because
that's true. They definitely have a very tight leash with that as well, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of series that don't get the chance to really grow or spread their wings, so to speak. And what was it? I think there was a series that there was Warrior Nun, I think, where people are it got canceled, but I think people are trying to get it back, and they again, Netflix just pulls the plug on these things because they're and most of the shows don't even last what, it's 4 seasons, and then they just cut ties and it's done.
Yeah, there's very few that last past X number of seasons. Not everything gets canceled, and they say, we don't cancel the popular ones. So it's well, we don't really know what are popular because we can't really tell. We got to guess, Wednesday is obviously a huge success for them. But then you had Cowboy Bebop, which had a huge fan following. I watched I didn't watch the whole series, so I'm probably to blame for it. But my wife actually, it got her to watch Cowboy Bebop. She would have never watched the anime. So in a lot of ways, it did its job, but it was so expensive. It just seems so you spent all that money on the casting and all this stuff, and you're just going to walk away?
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like a very solid business model. And as we know, it probably isn't at this point because, it's a tough one. So we'll see how this goes. But that would be great to have them do some different things, try some different business models, because I think Netflix is a great service, but I know a lot of people it's bringing them, especially when they're going to start banning people sharing accounts,
right.
And my mom, it was funny, Chris, you'll love this. My mom calls me up and says, Todd, do I need to pay for Netflix? Don't worry, Mom, we'll take care of you. Yeah, that's okay. They've gotten enough free years out of certain people that I'm you know what? You can now pay for it. I mean, you've gotten 12 years of Netflix for free.
Right.
You know what? Sorry, there's no free lunch, as they say. Oh well. But we'll see what they do with this. Now, the next story is interesting. We had John Bernardo on last week who guested, and he is a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan.
Nice.
He kind of told me about this series that's coming out. There's going to be a new TMNT animated movie, I believe, called Mutant Mayhem. This is going to be by Seth Rogen, I believe, writing and directing it. This is going to be a fresh take on the Turtles. It's going to basically not continuing any of the other series they've had in the past. And it's a Nickelodeon property, as you know. And they dropped a teaser trailer at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, which I guess they're still doing that thing.
Yeah.
People get slimed, I assume.
Yeah,
the big thing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So perfect.
I mean, the teaser definitely has that like Into the Spider-Verse feel to it, like a very comic booky versus the animated series. So, although granted that they're all wearing their colors, blue, red, and etc. So it's I don't know. It'd be interesting because it looks like they're going for a younger cast too, right? Like with the voices, at least for the turtles themselves.
Yeah, and that if you think about it, Teenage Mutant Ninja.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Teenage,
It
the first
should have
name.
teenagers too.
No, we're just going to cast all adults, right? It's just like that. Why? They're teenagers. So good catch on that. I mean, and this movie's supposed to come out March 5th, 2023. Turtles have been around for decades. Everybody has their turtles that they love, whether it's the original comic book, the cartoon series, the movie series, video games. There's tons of it. There's been live action. There's been CGI, traditional animation.
I mean, it's impressive how much like Turtles has just like either reinvented themselves or like just been in pop culture for so long. It's they're basically like the Bugs Bunny of our generation, right?
Who would have thought? Anyways, because I mean, when this first came out, I mean, like people thought, well, God, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's not going to last. Just like Power Rangers, that thing's ridiculous.
Right.
And those are two of the, I would say, 80s, 90s things that continue to be popular versus some of the other things at the time. Thundercats, G.I. Joe, they didn't last. I mean, they try, but they've just not been successful. So with that, and it's like my son had his favorite version of Turtles. And I'm sure, Chris, you've got little ones. Yeah. Show them the Turtles. They'll be like, yeah, I'm all in,
Yeah. I don't know. All the colors it must be.
Oh yeah, the colors. They're turtles. They look crazy. They eat pizza. They say cowabunga. I mean, what's not to love about any of those things? Well, enough about what this thing is going to be. Let's get this cast. So the cast is pretty long. So I'll try to hit some of the main ones. But we've got all young cast. Largely people I'm not even familiar with who they are. Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, Shaman Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, Micah Abbey as Donatello, Brady Noon as Raphael. But here's a voice you'll probably know. Jackie Chan as Splinter. Ido Edabriri as April. Ice Cube as Superfly. Not Superfly. Missed opportunity, folks.
Right.
Seth Rogen as Bebop. Totally makes sense. John Cena as Rocksteady. Totally makes sense. Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko. I guess he's going for like the surfer dude kind of sound, maybe.
Yeah. See that.
Yeah, Natasha Demetrio as Wingnut. Rose Byrne as Leatherhead. Post Malone, really? As Ray Fillet. Hannibal Buress as Genghis Frog. Maya Rudolph as Cynthia Ultram. Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman. Ooh, there's your heavy hitter right there.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Where's Shredder?
Maybe that's going to be like the secret. I don't know. I'm looking through anything else. Maybe that'll be a late reveal. I mean, but this looks like a fun voice cast. Yeah. I like unknowns as voice actors because you don't go, oh, that's Seth Rogen. Like kind of like the Mario movie. It's like, oh, it's Chris. It's one of the Chris's. Not you, Chris. Nothing against Chris.
Yeah. I get it.
All those
I
Chris's.
didn't didn't realize there was a Superfly and there was Baxter Stockman.
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, it's very weird because I was just talking about that because we read TMNT the last run in our show, and I had been out of the loop on Turtles where they're at. And it was funny with that because Baxter Stockman was one of the bad guys in it, and they played it straight-laced. But I always remember Baxter Stockman being the nerdy guy, and then he turned himself into a fly. That's all I remember. And so Giancarlo Esposito is it? I mean, Gus Fring. Damn.
Yeah.
That should be entertaining. But I think that might be one of those things where they reveal, like, when it gets close, big trailer drop, Shredder. And I mean, so Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot then. You brought it up. It's only if yourself to blame. Who should be the voice of Shredder?
Ooh, voice of Shredder. Well, it can't be the original guy who, rest in peace.
The dad from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is so crazy.
Who would be a good Shredder? Wow. I'm going to have to think about that for a moment. I'll come back to you on it. But who's got a good, like, commanding voice? I mean, Giancarlo Esposito would have been a good Shredder. Like, he would have been good.
Yes, exactly.
Although, I mean, if they're trying to be accurate to the,
Japanese, right?
Japanese or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the guy that was in like Inception and and Batman Begins. What's his name? What is his name? I'm gonna look it up now.
Ken Watanabe? No.
Yes.
Okay, it was Ken Watanabe. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he would have been. I think he'd be okay. I think if they're going with that.
Oh yeah. Definitely well known. I was thinking, did you see Bullet Train?
Oh yeah.
The
elder
Japanese mafia guy. Yes. I thought he'd be good too.
He'd be good. Absolutely.
Yeah. So consider we don't know any of the names.
Yeah.
Okay.
That guy.
That guy. Yeah. If you've not seen it, Bullet Train, definitely watch it. Highly entertaining.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This movie comes out in next year, or actually, no, this year. It's in May. So this is coming out in like literally 2 months. So this might be a movie you'd take your kids to, maybe. I don't know if they might be a little too young to go, but I would watch this.
Yeah, definitely. Looks fun. Can't wait.
Yeah. So next, we're going to have a story that I asked Chris if he actually wanted to talk about this, and he actually said, yes, I'm mildly excited about this. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we've got a new animated series called Agent Elvis. It's going to have Don Cheadle and Johnny Knoxville in the cast, which is crazy. But this is about Matthew McConaughey voicing Elvis, but he's a super spy. The animation style is so slick in this.
It's so slick. It's so cool looking. And the other thing, I'm just like, I wanted to be in that room when they pitched this, like, just to see the reaction on Netflix. Be like, okay, I see where you're going with this. And like, you know what this game reminds me of? This show reminds me of a game. Interstate 56. I don't know, or 76.
Oh yeah,
76. Yeah.
Was it the car combat game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. You're right. It is kind of that stylish, minimalistic. Look. Yeah.
So I mean, it looks really cool. I'm super excited to see what and looks like it's pretty violent. So we'll see Elvis do some kicking ass in animation.
Yeah, the cast is great though. It's got Jason Matsukas, Ed Helms, Christina Hendricks, Chris Elliott, Fred Armisen, Kieran Culkin, Simon Pegg, Ego Wadham, Asif Ali, Craig Robinson, George Clinton from the P-Funk All-Stars apparently, Gary Cole, Tony Calavero, Tara Strong, and this is crazy. X's real life ex-wife Priscilla Presley's in this too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And this is also by Sony Animation Pictures, which have done some great films. The Mitchells vs. the Machines, great animated film on Netflix, and also behind Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse. Also production houses from Venture Brothers, Animaniacs, and Big Mouth. So this could be good. It's going to be on Netflix. And the thing about Sony is Sony doesn't have a streaming service, so they essentially can make whatever they want and they sell it to different distribution places. So, which I think is great because we're getting really cool stuff like this. So I'm in. It's going to be animated. It's going to probably be more adult focused, and it will start, Chris, on St. Patrick's Day.
Nice. Can't wait.
So there, we got a couple different things to turn into Netflix for. Chris Rock and then Agent Elvis. So check it out if you will. The next thing we've got is I'm actually surprised that this hasn't actually come about yet, but it is happening now, and that is a new Haunted Mansion film. This was been on the schedule. We haven't seen anything about it. We haven't heard anything about it, but it finally released a trailer. The last time Haunted Mansion saw the light of day, it was in an Eddie Murphy vehicle from 2003. At the time, I believe Eddie Murphy was probably making The Clumps. He was making Nutty Professor 13, Dr. Dolittle. It was like his era of doing like family content, right?
He was all over the place at that time. I mean, he's like what? But I think he did a little bit better than like the Adam Sandler. Like Adam Sandler was just like doing stuff just to do it, and like Eddie Murphy was just like, he was still like doing stuff in characters and stuff, and it was fun. It seemed like he was having fun. I don't know. I could be wrong. But. Yeah.
After a while, I was like, oh wait, Eddie Murphy's going to be in another movie where he's playing 18 different people in makeup. Then you're like, okay, hold on, Norbert. Yeah. Come on, we're doing Norbit. We're doing all these movies. So, but yeah, he's had such an interesting career. I mean, if you have not seen it, folks, My Name is Dolomite is phenomenal. He was great in that, kind of like going back to doing some more interesting character pieces, which I think is great. And he still got it. He was just in Those People, I think is the most interesting thing. He replaced the dad. People? You People. That's what it is. Yeah. Where he plays the dad, and apparently he's really good in that too. So yeah, very cool. Well, this movie is coming out. It's a new take. It's basically being directed by Justin Simien, who did Dear White People and Bad Hair Day. Script by Katie Dippold, who did Ghostbusters and Spy. And the cast is Rosario Dawson. She's fantastic. Owen Wilson. And let's see who else is in this. Lakeith Stanfield from Knives Out, Tiffany Haddish, Danny DeVito, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jared Leto, Winona Ryder, Dan Levy, Chase Dillon, and Hassan Minaj. And here's the premise. This mysterious adventure, a doctor, Rosario Dawson, and her 9-year-old son, Dylan, looking to start a new life, move into a strangely affordable mansion in New Orleans, only discovered the place is much more than they had bargained for. Desperate for help, they contact a priest, Owen Wilson, who in turn enlists the aid of a widowed scientist turned failed paranormal expert, Stanfield, a French quarter psychic, Haddish, and a crotchety historian, Danny DeVito. This comes out July 28th, 2023. It's going to looks to be very family friendly, light on the scares, but definitely going in on the antics of the ride. If you're familiar with that, the ride is great. Like you go on that elevator and the pictures get long and they reveal like crazy antics. This could be a lot of fun.
It could be. I mean, like you said, they tried it once, and like I guess they're trying to make another franchise again, like reboot something. So why not? It could be like a fun little thing. And again, another movie with a crazy cast. Like it's a lot of talent riding on this like reinvigoration of this potential.
Absolutely. So. And either they were paid so much they're not caring and will just do whatever is asked, or they were paid enough and are like, I'm enjoying myself. This is good work. I'll put some effort into it. Movies during the summer as a parent, it seems like there's a drought of like things that are appropriate for kids that are just over the top action, violent, whatever. Right. This one could be a good hit and something to kids that's not your standard animation movie with singing animals.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. And I can't. If you look at the cast, also a lot of them have done a lot of Disney stuff or like MCU stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Owen Wilson with Loki and all that stuff. So it's I don't know. Maybe this will like bleed into more franchises within the House of Mickey.
It's funny because everybody was like saying they looked at the cast and the one thing they pointed out, wait, Jared Leto's in this too? He's in everything for some reason. Like, I mean, he never says no to a movie, apparently.
Yeah. Well, good for him.
I wouldn't either, though.
Yeah.
I like a paycheck.
Yeah.
Oh, well, some sad news, especially since Charlie's not here to talk about it. I'm sure he talked about it on Code 47, his Star Trek podcast. But I'm going to talk about this because Star Trek Discovery is going to end with season 5 in early 2024 in Discovery Plus. This was kind of a surprise because this series is what started over the renaissance of Star Trek on TV once again, trying to find its footholding. This show had a rocky launch. Brian, I'm blanking on his name. She was a showrunner who launched the show. He was behind Pushing Daisies and several other things. Brian, not singer, Brian, I'm blanking on his name. Crap. I'll remember it eventually. But he was behind this, and he essentially left the show before the show even debuted on TV. Wow. People were nervous about this. The buzz was, oh, this is going to be a prequel. Didn't we already have enough prequels of Star Trek with already Enterprise going back in the past? We should really be moving forward. Before that, Star Trek really ended on a sour note with Star Trek Nemesis and Enterprise. So at this point, Star Trek, people were nervous about, especially after the J.J. Abrams movies that some people loved, some people didn't. I would say the diehard were less happy with it, but I think it did bring in new fans who just wanted more action in their Star Trek, if they even knew of what Star Trek was at the beginning. So this show ultimately, I think, has been critically acclaimed, has brought back new eyes to the show, brought back fans from the show that have been lacking, that were waiting for new good Star Trek. And I think and there was a million different ways that this could have failed. And I think it succeeded. The cast has been excellent. The twists have been interesting. They've failed at some plot points. They've done some really good things. I mean, they started in the past, and now they're farther along in the future than Star Trek has ever been. So it's cool. I think it's kind of been a success in a lot of different ways, not being afraid to take chances. Some of their artistic reinterpretations of the Klingons were not loved. I don't think anybody really liked it. It was weird looking. Okay. But yeah, I mean, in some new interesting technology, and definitely the most diverse Star Trek has ever been either on the screen. And I think that's to be applauded, because we have essentially a young black female Star Trek captain. I mean, that's cool. We've got you've got gay cast members. We've got new aliens that are included. And I think this is a success. Now, Chris, I don't want to say everything, but I know when we talked before and I said this story, and you're like, I'm not really caught up to Star Trek. But when it comes to the new Star Trek, I think the best show is Strange New Worlds. I think it's the best show to say, if you're not familiar with Star Trek, start here, because there's no legacy. It's essentially at the very beginning, but it is really, it's like the original series, but if it was written and developed with strong acting, strong directing, great storylines, it's standalone for the most part. I think that's the best place to start. But I think if you do want a fresh take on Star Trek as well, and you want more of a overarching story, Discovery is not a bad place to start either. Okay.
Is that is the Strange New World? Is that something? Is that the animated one?
Or? No, that is. So we have Lower Decks, which is animated, and that's like a comedy. Okay. I've been iffy on that show, but I think a lot of people do like it because it's a sense of humor. There's also Prodigy, which is on Nickelodeon, which is a Star Trek kids show, which a lot of people like as well. And then Discovery, and then Strange Worlds, and we've got Picard is like the one that's been going on, which is essentially a sequel to The Next Generation. So there's a lot there, which is great. There's been more offerings for Star Trek for everyone, and I think it's a good place to be with Star Trek. So I don't know. Is Star Trek any interest to you at all, or is it just something that's never been in your wheelhouse?
It wasn't initially, but like as I'm getting older, I think I'm appreciating this style of sci-fi a bit more than like maybe the Star Wars. So yeah, I might give these shows a shot. I think that's the other thing, is like I felt so overwhelmed with the history and all the shows that are there that are like, I'm like, okay, where do I start? And so I'm glad I got your recommendation right now on where to start. So like, maybe I'll dive into.
Yes, Strange New Worlds is like the perfect thing, because it's like only got one season in. It's 10 episodes, I think, long, and every episode is essentially standalone as a story. But it's not like, oh, it's trivial. Mm-hmm. They do develop characters. They do carry on things and events. So it's I think it's a great place to start. Paramount Plus is actually a pretty good service. It's got a lot of cool content, and you can get they always have free trials. So got a free weekend, get a free trial for a month. Watch what you want.
Yeah. Cool.
Very cool. I will pause, Chris, because you said you needed to pause.
Yes. I'll be
in 3, 2, 1. And we close the news with something that is I didn't expect to see so soon, but Disney now owns Fox, which then brings us to all of the franchise that Fox owns, and one of those that essentially cannot be killed, just like the thing that's involved with it, and that is Alien or Aliens, depending on what you count the franchise as. At this point, Alien's been around since 1979. Started as a simple horror franchise in space, has gone all across the world in many franchise, or many sequels, prequels, and whatever. At this point, though, we're hearing that the next movie will begin production March 9th in Budapest. Fede Alvarez, who is making this film, which is very interesting because Fede Alvarez is also the person that was behind the reinvigoration of The Evil Dead with his horror version of that, which took a lot of the comedy and really scoped in on what making you cringe and creep. And so a lot of ways it makes sense that he would get back, maybe to bring Alien back to its horror roots, which isn't always a bad thing. When you have a long-going franchise, sometimes you have to get back to where you started and understand what made it work. In this movie, it'll be led by Mayor of Easttown's Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Isabel Merced, Spike Fearn, and Eileen Wu. And Chris, if you recognized any of those names, you're a better person than I.
I don't know anyone there. I'm curious, like, where this falls in the timeline of the Alien series, like, because I know we've had like prequels with like Prometheus and stuff like that. So, what'll happen? I don't know. But at the same time, with this younger crew, it makes me think of like, is this going to be like Jason, where they're going to camp or something like they're going to space camp? And there's a killer on the loose, so to speak, So
yeah, I mean, that's like we talked about the last segment about Star Trek. They have Prodigy, same thing there. It's a young crew. They find a starship and they go off on crazy adventures. Same thing here. It could be just like that, like and it does say that there's a very simple synopsis. It says it'll be eventually taking place in a far off world. Will be centered on a younger group of people who are destined to cross paths with the terrifying threat. So essentially, they're being vague, but that's probably just enough of a premise anyways. Maybe they're like a science exploration vehicle, very similar to the first one. They come across something, and there we go. The aliens we know have been transported beyond just their homeworld, and they could be there. And what makes them horrific is when they attach themselves to whatever and they adapt, and then we get different versions of them. And this is the 9th entry. The last entry was 2017 Alien Covenant, which I did not watch, but I did see Prometheus. Mm-hmm. Prometheus was a weird film. It was essentially the prequel, which
did Ridley
I don't know.
Scott do that one?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And I think he even did Alien Covenant as well. And I think Alien Covenant was trying to get back to kind of what we kind of viewed as Alien, but I kind of felt like that was a series that I'd probably had enough of. Now with what is it? When this probably will come out is guessing, maybe 2025, 2026. That's almost a 10-year gap. I don't know. Maybe it's enough for people to feel like, everything else comes back in horror, like Friday the 13th. Right. We've seen Halloween, those recent films. It could be enough. I don't know. What was the last Alien film you saw?
Ooh. Maybe the second one.
One to see.
I don't know if do you consider like Alien versus Predator part of this?
At this point, it's not like numbered trilogy, but it is aliens are in it, so it's got to be considered something.
Right? So I don't know. Yeah, that was probably the closest that I've watched.
Okay. So. Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I think I saw those two. There was like 2 of those. So yeah. They're everywhere. Yeah. Well. Yeah. It's hard to believe that, Disney now owns this franchise, but we'll see.
When you said that, I totally forgot about that.
They own Predator too. They own all these different things. And you're like, do they own RoboCop? I don't think they own RoboCop. Maybe they do. I don't know. I wouldn't be crazy if they did, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it gets them back on track, but we've talked about franchise fatigue, franchise, famine for certain things, and Alien is definitely one of those. I guess we'll see what they do next, and hopefully this is good. because I never want to see anything fail.
Yeah. Same.
All right. Well, that is it for the news portion of the show. Now it's time for us to get into what we're nerding out about. We're going to go to a place for some drinks, some libation, and some music, and that's the Geek Easy.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover bands playing, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, Chris, tell me what you're nerding out about, man.
Oh wow. Well, like you, I watched Quantumania, but I didn't tell my family because I went to see it.
Oh, you I love that when it happens. Like I do that with my family all the time. Like I would definitely go see things without them and then say, "Oh, well, I'll see it with you." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you got a group to take with you. So that's a harder thing to go after. What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I don't know why there's so much hate on the movie. There was, they were in the quantum realm, like it's the name, like but I thought Jonathan Majors was great as Kang, and I'm excited to see. This is the start of Phase 5, right? So it's got a lot to do, and with so little time to do it, right? Like it was I think it was even under 2 hours or so.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, very short.
Which was surprising for a Marvel movie to begin with. And then like so for it to try to do all that and like to satisfy everyone was just kind of it was hard. I think it was hard for the writers and the director to get this where it'll please everyone. But I enjoyed it for what it was. And hopefully like there will be seeds of that, of what they showed in the movie that become, what Phase 5 is, which is I don't even know where they're going to go with Phase 5. It's just so weird, like what is possible in this.
So based on that, did you stay for the post-credit scenes?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know Loki. We're getting Loki because they had a scene from Loki, which is funny.
Yep.
We know that is coming out. We don't have a date yet for Loki season 2. It's coming this year.
Right.
And then we have Guardians of the Galaxy, and then we have the Marvels in November.
Yep.
So with that, do you think they're going to put we're just going to get like a different Loki in all of these properties, like every time they're dropped? Because that's the whole thing with Loki. It's like, with not Loki. Sorry, with Kang. You think we're going to get a different, because the whole point of Kang is, yes, he's not like Thanos where he's one powerful dude. He's essentially an army of people, right? Yeah. And every time he's different, and he may not know you from because his version of you might be like, well, my Chris had a full head of hair. He had a mohawk. Right. This one doesn't. Or Todd had, a beautiful dreadlocks that are orange, and he was wonderful, and he didn't need glasses, and he was 7'2".
Right. Oh, wow. Okay.
Which, it's always been my dream to be 7'2" with, orange dreadlocks, but, apparently didn't happen. But I mean, because I think that's the whole point. It's the fact that Kang is going to be a different villain. He's going to be a different threat. And I think the hard part is how do you do that well, right? And I hope they do.
I mean, they I think they picked the right actor for it, at least, because I think Jonathan Majors has that range to play different styles of Kang. But you're right. Like I don't. And the other thing, everyone's speculating: did he really die? Did this particular version of Kang actually die? I don't know, because there's they can just do anything, and that's the thing that just blows my mind about Kang himself is how do you beat Kang? I've because there's just gonna be another version of him somewhere that's just gonna try and mess with you. So, and then there's the Young Avengers version of Kang, right? We got Iron Lad,
yeah,
just a good guy, and it's so it's just so weird, this time travel thing and variants. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a shame that Young Avengers isn't really set up yet, because that would have been the coolest thing in the world. We find out that in their midst is essentially one of the biggest villains in the world, and
Right.
he just played you all.
Right.
But right now at the the Young Avengers, we're getting some of those characters. We're getting Scar, which is essentially Hulkling. We're getting Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye.
Patriot. Yep,
Yeah,
Patriot.
we're getting Patriot, which I mean, that'll be interesting if he gets introduced in the next Captain America movie in regards to, he was already introduced, but then we're also going to get a new Falcon, which would have been the one character, the Latin character,
Yes.
Latinx character was in there too. So yeah, I mean, they're putting the pieces there. It's just
like a slow drip.
Exactly.
Of
and maybe that's where we go out of season. Maybe it's what is it? Phase 6. Maybe that's what they do. Here's our new heroes.
By then, are these young Avengers going to be young anymore? They're just going to be Avengers.
What was it, like 90210 or not? No, sorry, not 90210. 21 Jump Street. Like, it's like, yeah, we've got our 35-year-olds playing 18-year-olds. Yeah. Sure, why not? Yeah. Well, very cool, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of like this bonus negativity. Once blood's in the water, geeks get on it like, it's the worst thing ever. And it's like, wow, guys, we have no range of like, things can just be okay, or it's fun versus best thing ever. So I'm glad you liked it. I liked it too. It had its flaws, but I still had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I tried to get into White Lotus.
How far'd you get?
I got 3 episodes in. I was like,
farther than me.
I just don't get it, because like everyone is just so unlikable. I'm like, why do I care about anything that's going on in this show?
So you've not watched and we'll get into that, but there's one character in White Lotus where it's the manager, the hotel manager.
Yes. Yep.
He is in The Last of Us, and you'll never guess that is him in The Last of Us, which is just too funny.
Well, yeah, I heard it was in episode 3, right?
Which I'm like, when I saw it, I'm like, that's that guy? Because he has no Australian accent. Right? He has no accent either. It's like, oh my God, that's got some range. But yeah, I only watched episode 1. So I kind of get what they're going for. And it's funny because they label it as for the words, it's a comedy. It is a very like broad dramedy range that the comedy is like that. It's almost like that. The show that I think really started this trend was like Seinfeld. Then it was the show with Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yep.
It's that awkward, like weird situations that don't awkward. They're cringy and they are funny, but it is there was a lot of that, and like there's a lot of like male nudity in the show, which is like, but it's depressing male nudity, right? It's depressing male nudity. It's like, oh, that's the saddest thing in the world we're talking about. Man, yeah. Especially as you become men of a certain age. It's like, I don't want to talk about that, but it is what it is. Yeah. Oh, well. I'm in episode 1. We'll probably try to watch more of it, because some of these like comedies, they take some time to find their pace, people in season 2 is out now, and I'm like, okay, I'm hearing great things about it, word of words. So I'm like,
yeah. I mean, maybe I'll try season 2, because I don't know if they tie to each other.
I don't think they do. I think Jennifer Coolidge is the only like mainstay.
Okay.
So maybe her arc plays a part in it, but I don't know.
Yeah. And the other thing that my close friend of mine has been like bugging me to keep watching, and I do like watching. It's just I always forget about it. Is the F1 series on Netflix, and it's all about it's actually really cool, and it basically follows all the major teams in F1, Formula One, just to be clear, and like basically like all their trials and tribulations going through that entire season, and it's pretty cool, and like there's just crazy passionate people in a very, very expensive sport, because like these drivers have to be the best of the best. There's only 20 of them in the world, and they have to be able to make sure that these multi-million-dollar cars don't get wrecked all the time. There's just so high stakes, and it's crazy. So I just finished season 1. I'm on to season 2. I think there's like 5 or 6 seasons.
Oh, really? Okay. So do you? So No, so little about F1. I know it's basically these vehicles are ridiculous. They're not even like things you could even buy because they're the one-offs, unique.
Right.
Ferrari, Ford. I mean, there's only so many companies actually get behind these things. The teams, the team owners, the there's a lot of drama there. It's like versus like NASCAR, which is just a big oval track, and you got to get through there, and Bubba's got to turn left and do those things. And it's still good driving. And it's still hard to do, but I mean, what F1 is like. I mean, Detroit used to have an F1 race. And I forgot what they called it, but it was in downtown Detroit, which is just so crazy that you would do that, right? And it's like, and it's not round circle; it's lots of turns, and you're going ridiculous speeds. Like they go crazy. I mean, compared to like a NASCAR,
easy,
F1. I mean, they're to the ground. I mean, you're 2 inches off the ground. I mean, they're small, and they could smoke NASCARs. I mean, they could. They just can. But I mean, you're doing, and you got this guy tucked in this little wheel. I mean, little wheel is probably like. And it's just, to me, it's just like totally different. It's a world I don't know. I'm not big into racing itself. But yeah, this is kind of the stuff I like about sports is when it's put in a dramatized, you put players behind it that tell the story, and that changes it, makes it a must watch. So I've heard a lot about this show.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten to the heart to watch it yet, but maybe I should.
I mean, it's worth the watch because they don't even at least in season 1 they didn't really even talk to. There's usually like the top 3, which is like Ferrari, Mercedes, and I'm blanking on that.
Is it Porsche? Is Porsche involved? Or no?
I don't think they are. No, but it's
Jaguar. I don't know who else would be involved.
Maybe Aston Martin. I don't know. Anyway,
Audi?
The point is,
I think Audi does it, right?
Maybe Audi. Yeah. But yeah, it's basically the rest of the pack that like season 1 talks about, and it's just interesting, like just the battling, because like they know they can't touch Ferrari and all this stuff, but they'll like they're just vying for like this number 4 seed and stuff like that, and again, it's really interesting, and it's really well shot too. That's the other thing too. It was the audio and the direction, like the editing is just really good too.
And by the way, Chris, I'm just telling you right now, a good friend of mine, Sean Nias, who is the patron of the show, he's big into cars. I'm an idiot when it comes to cars, and he knows that, but he's kind to me, and he's probably listening to this right now. Like, Todd, shut up. So, but you know what? I love sports, and I love seeing people doing things that they're good at. So it's kind of like what I'm trying to like think of, like even like Ted Lasso. You don't have to know anything about soccer as long as the drama's good.
Yeah.
Join in and watch, get excited. Yeah. Do they do anything to like let people know like what the hell's going on? So it's like, he's like, okay, I don't know anything about this. Could you watch it as someone who is just a novice and knows nothing about it?
I don't think I don't really follow the sport like my friends do, but this has gotten me more intrigued to follow the sport, if that makes sense. They don't dumb it down, but they do have like there's some explanations that happen throughout the show, and it's cool. I'm definitely interested to go to a race eventually, but those are ridiculously expensive. But maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're in close to New York, right? And so there's Indianapolis, the Indy 500. Right. I don't know how many races there are in the U.S., but yeah, to see them, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Check it out. It's on Netflix. So yeah, if anybody's interested, or just like, hey, you've curiosity about like, what is this thing that people are passionate, especially in the European audience.
Oh yeah.
They like the rally racing and they like this. Those are the two things they do with cars. If they see the rednecks with a Daytona or a Chevy or whatever, they're like, what the hell is that? Move away. Yeah. No Ricky Bobby in this one. Huh?
No Ricky Bobby.
All right. We'll get into my stuff, and I don't want to spoil anything really, so I'm not going to, because Chris, I know we did some pre-checks, so don't worry, folks. No spoilers here, but we did have the big drop of Mandalorian season 3, episode 1, just one episode. It's a quick episode too. It's like 35 minutes long, and depending on if you watched Book of Boba Fett, which is the saddest part about this whole thing, is if you did not watch Book of Boba Fett, you're probably like, why did all this stuff happen? I thought Grogu got turned over to Luke. And why is he back here? So weird. but it is kind of a precursor, I would say. Just watch what happened on Book of Boba Fett before you got here to find out why. But if that's spoilers to you, you have not watched Book of Boba Fett, but all I'll just say is Mando's back with baby Yoda, Grogu, and they're essentially trying to get Mando back in the good graces of the Mandalorian cult he's part of, because he removed his helmet. That is kind of like the main thrust of this season. It's not spoilers. They already talked about it at the end. So that's where we're at. And they don't lie. We get right into episode 1. Essentially, he's trying to get some more information on how he can redeem himself. I will say this after watching it, no spoilers. The Mandalorian cult that he wants to get back into is a bunch of idiots, is all I'll say. There's this opening battle scene, which I won't give it away, but they're the dumbest boxes of rocks. They had an easy way to avoid casualties and things, and they didn't. It was dumb. It was the dumbest thing in the world. I'm like, what is this going on? But once we got past that, and then once we got past the fact that I hope Baby Yoda will eventually get old. I don't know how they're going to do it. Baby Groot got old. How is Baby Yoda going to get old? Because at this point, Chris, you have young kids. I've had young kids.
Yeah.
After a while, you don't want your toddler to be a toddler for 85 years. You want them to get older because you're stop doing that crap.
Yeah. I mean, but like they do age slower too, right? That race, is that basically what happened?
Well, he's supposedly 50.
Okay.
But and I did some math. I did too much research on this, Chris. I'm like, why do I even know this stuff? I looked it up. Yoda was in the Jedi Academy and excelling in a master at age 100.
Okay.
Yoda talks, and we know that the only other Yoda type being we've seen is Yaddle. She was in Tales of the Jedi. You can watch the series. She was in it. I have a running joke that Charlie makes fun of me. So I always bring up Yaddle because I'm like, yes, Yaddle's the most ridiculous thing in the world. She had one scene in one of the prequel movies where it's just Yoda with a wig. Mm-hmm. And Yoda talks in that backward speak that's just very weird. And then we find out Yaddle speaks normal. And I'm like, so I don't know anything about these people. And then they were telling like Yoda's 900 years old, but he was a Jedi Master at 100. Baby Grogu's 50. I'm like, is he going to get is it like a weird odd age progress? So like you don't age at all for like the first 50 years, but then after that, it's like a stair step up and you're like, where did the time go? You know? So I don't know, Chris. I don't know, but there's a couple scenes in this I'm thinking, and this is going to come off as horrible, so you can ban me, cancel me, whatever. But I'm like, and they talk about how intelligent he is, and he's just unlocking his memories to the Jedi training. I'm like, maybe he's just a special child. And take that how you would will. Yeah. Everybody's child is special, but he could be a little bit off. Because there's a scene in this, I'm like, okay, that's cute and all, but he's acting once again like he's a 1-year-old. Right. And I'm like, I don't think it's a good story progression for him to, if this show's going to go on for 8 more seasons, if we've got him essentially in the same type of that personality and that type of maturity for 8 more seasons. I'd like to see some development or something. And that's why I was so excited, because apparently we find out he's been, by the time he met up with the Mandalorian again, it was 4 years. They said he spent 2 years with Din Djarin. Then he spent 2 years. This is what Jon Favreau said. 2 years then with Luke. So 4 years of progress that he came back together. I'm like, so that's essentially almost 5 years.
And that's the thing, like with the whole thing. Oh God, what's Rosario Dawson's character? Ahsoka. Yeah, Ahsoka. Right, like when she was like unlocking his like backstory and stuff like that, and memories. And then obviously working with Luke, you would think he would become a little bit more mature, or like
start verbalizing, maybe.
Something, anything, but
have a little bit more dexterity, or be able to not have to be picked up all the time like a toddler. Right. Because we've seen Yoda flip and stuff. I mean, Yaddle flipped and stuff too. So they eventually get to become mature. And if we think about it, if he's 50 years old and he's at 3 years old, we can't assume at Yoda at 900 that, because if we did the math, you think 50, okay, that's 2, that's like 12. Yoda's not 12 years old. Right. In whatever their years. I mean, he's an old man with a cane. I mean, unless it's like Benjamin Buttons, but it's like the weird Benjamin Button syndrome. So
Sure.
I'm going off on a weird tangent on this whole thing. Take that part away, and I hope they fix it eventually. Highly entertaining still. This is still my favorite new generation Star Wars in regards to what it wants to be, which is adventure, some heartwarming storytelling, some good characters, and some good action. Love it. I came around on Andor after half through that season, then loved the second season. I thought it was great writing. It wasn't going to be Star Wars to everybody because it definitely wasn't heartwarming. Had very no aliens, no like space combat or anything like that. It was what it was, a smaller story. It was kind of like Breaking Bad for Star Wars in a lot of ways.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So if you've not watched it, Chris, I would say Andor. Some people say give it the first 3 episodes. I say give it the first 6.
Wow.
Episode 7 is what got me in.
It took you that long.
And I would say, honestly, I wish there hadn't been episode 1 through 6 because it added nothing.
Should I just skip to 7? Is that
I would be curious if somebody did that and they would tell me, Todd, I really didn't understand what was going on. I don't think you need to. I think there was some story beats, but I think all of those could have been very summed up in flashbacks that would have taken like 30 minutes. That's where I felt like the pacing was glacial, and everybody says the pacing's bad, but it wasn't just the pacing; it was just what was given in those episodes and the amount of characterization. I didn't think there was enough characterization in 6 episodes that built the world. That felt, I think everything mattered. Episode 7 in regards to understanding the world they're in, the characters, and the trauma they felt. So I don't know. I'm wrong. I know I am. I'm sure I am. But yeah. It's just too much of things these days. And for me, it was 7 episodes to get into it. So yeah. And we had other people that said this is the best thing ever. Other people, it wasn't their Star Wars. I, once again, came around, but it was a journey. Oh, well. Watch. I'm excited to see what happens next in Mando. I don't know how long the season is, but we get so little of this type of Star Wars. I really like that it has me very excited to see what next. I'm even wearing my Star Wars Dadalorian t-shirt. I mean, come on.
Nice.
Exactly. So there you go. Check out Mandalorian. Next is The Last of Us, episode 7. Chris, I know you have been largely not partaking, which is fine. If you want to, it's going to be there whenever you're ready for it. This episode specifically was tied into it was Left Behind, which was DLC, which came out to The Last of Us after the game was released in the, I believe it was the remastered version on PS4. This is a standalone episode, very much like we had episode 3 of Last of Us, which was a standalone. And I think it's been great because you've had some touchstone episodes where you feel like I could just watch that and get a feel for the world and where they're at and get a very good experience of the series. So this was once again one of those. And we're left with 2 episodes left after this. And I'm excited to see what they do because that's heavy lifting. Because in the game, I know what's coming up next. And basically we have a big scene, the winter part of The Last of Us. It's going to be action packed. It's going to be crazy. And I cannot wait. And then we're going to the finale. And that's going to be a roller coaster.
You think they're going to finish? They're going to get to the end of part 1 at the end of this season?
I've been saying I was worried they wouldn't, but I think they will.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right decision, but they have delivered an excellent season so far. So maybe I'm not the right guy to once again, you heard my diatribe on Grogu. So
I don't know. I mean, that it makes you wonder, who is it that said, because the showrunners here, right?
Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann.
Right. They clearly have a vision, and he's clearly. Druckmann's already written the show out, right? I mean, this in essentially the game.
Yeah.
But it's like, how much creative control do they have to let's extend this out for 4 seasons, 5 seasons, or just do a nice 3 seasons and be done with it? I don't know. So I'm curious of what'll happen.
That's a good question. It seems like they are getting completely creative control. Craig Mazin, who's the producer and the director and all this behind this, even Neil Druckmann, who's behind the game, they seem to have a very good, strong partnership, which is great.
Yeah.
And HBO is a great partner at this point. If you remove like Warner Brothers and all the craziness behind them, HBO is the best place for drama. It's must see TV, and they've proven that over the years with all of their content. But what I always worry about is like, okay, if this is successful, are they going to say we're done with two seasons? Because we have 2 games. I know they are developing their factions like multiplayer game, and they said there's going to be story-based content out of that.
Okay.
We don't know about a Last of Us Part 3 as of yet. Yeah. So it gets very tempting to do a Game of Thrones thing where you run out of source material, all those things. We know in these games, and Chris, depending on how familiar with the games, certain characters don't make it, and that's just, and that's going to be a hard road to hoe with a lot of fans. So we'll see how that goes, and you're not going to like what your primary characters do. That's the hard part.
I feel like part 2, like the game part 2, could probably be broken up into 2 seasons because of the story, the characters that get intermingled in this, right? So I could see that being like maybe 2 seasons there.
That's true.
But the other thing that we've essentially they've tested waters with is having these kind of short, like these one-off stories that happen throughout the world with, like you said, episode 3 and episode 7 is obviously part of that DLC, but that like they can just spread that out throughout season 2 and go for as long as they want. And there are it's not just Joel and Ellie's story, right? There's other people that are affected in this world, and characters that they've introduced, new characters that they've introduced in this world too. So, the world's your oyster essentially at this point.
Yeah, and I think I think you're absolutely on the mark. If they want to extend this, they will take almost like scenes of the world through different lenses that maybe people that have passed Joel and Ellie in experiences, and like we've got like more of the town where Joel's brother is and their experiences and what they've gone through. The Firefly story. There's so many different ways you can go, and it's not reflected in the game. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe they're saying, the game introduced the world, but there are so many stories to tell. We don't want to be like the Walking Dead, where it's like none of the characters die after a while because everybody's their fan favorite, so we have to just let them live forever and there's no consequences. And you're repeating the same story beats of like, oh look, we moved to another town and it's another group of people that are bad. Yeah, great.
Right. Don't be like the Walking Dead. Like, don't overstay your welcome. If it really is just 3 seasons, let it be 3 seasons and be done with it.
Yeah,
people can enjoy it and not be so miserable about it. It's like we saw with Game of Thrones season 7.5 to 8. That was terrible. So
yes, exactly. There's nothing wrong with leaving people wanting more.
Yeah.
I've always never complained. I'm like, oh, I wish they would have made less of that. Well, maybe I did, but you know what I mean? It's like sometimes know when you've overstayed your welcome and move on. Yeah. So in this point, we're in a good spot, and it's so weird. We're worried about what they're going to do. And I'm like, I just want to make sure this season ends well. they've got to finish the landing, and then they go from there, and then we'll go from there. But I mean, I think I'm so excited that people are respecting video games and their storytelling. And this makes me very excited for the next thing that gets developed, and hopefully it's treated with as much attention as this.
Agreed.
So there you go. I'm very excited. I'm going to watch after this episode. I'm going to eat. I'm going to get put on HBO Max, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. And I'm sure something horrible will happen because nothing goes wrong. Nothing goes well in that world. But you know what? I'm in it. And then the last thing was that I watched is Foundation. This is on Apple TV Plus. Watched the first episode. This is Isaac Asimov. And I will tell you, if you want fancy science fiction, Isaac Asimov is the guy you go to. He's the guy that is highbrow, not simple. It's layered. it's definitely not pew pew, shoot, aliens and those type of things. It is.
He's the one that wrote iRobot, right?
iRobot, the whole tenets of robots and will not kill, like the 10 Commandments and the Foundation. I didn't know anything about it. I'm going in blind. I will not lie. I am an ill-read nerd.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. I time is finite, and not everybody reads everything. But the cool part is we're getting adaptations. So I will hear about people if this is a good or bad adaptation or not. The good thing is, does this capture my attention and has me more interested in the Foundation than it did versus hearing? I've heard it's good, but I don't have the time to read a 300-page novel. This is really good, at least from a one episode perspective of presenting the concept, presenting the problem, presenting the characters, and getting you engaged. Okay. And that's all I ask of a show. If the pilot does that, I think The Peripheral is another show that did a good job of doing that. And that's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So The Peripheral, I watched the first two, and I'm going to watch more. And that did a good job of it. So I'm great. That's I'm blanking on his name, but that's the guy who made it, basically the Neuromancer, created all those cyberpunk-esque books. Neil, blanking on his name, but kind of influenced like why we got The Matrix, Johnny Mnemonic, those type of things. So that's a good series if you're interested. It kicks you off good. It's just I haven't had the time to get back into it. I'm going to. The Foundation is very similar, but the Foundation is much more peripheral, it's really taking your intellect and challenging it with what should science fiction be. And this is more pure science fiction. I mean, it's far future. We've got this weird world where it's an empire that is being led. It's sophisticated. It's advanced. Lee Pace is the main leader of the empire. He has cloned himself, and they've cloned their leaders for 400 years to stay in power. And he's cloned himself in this way, Chris. It's so crazy. So Lee Pace Prime they call him Day. That's his name. He's the Emperor Day. He's cloned an earlier version of himself as a young person that's probably 10, calls him Dawn. And then he has another version of himself, which is older, which I'm guessing his name is Dusk. So it's himself as a 55 to 60-year-old version of himself. So he essentially has three versions, and they're reigning at the same time, and they call themselves Empire. It's an interesting concept. It's different.
That was true.
And this empire has reigned for 12,000 years. The problem is essentially a mathematician has determined, based using math, that the empire will end in 500 years, and it will take 30,000 years for human life and life to come back.
Oh, wow.
This is almost considered heresy. This mathematician created a math competition to find someone who is smart enough to basically verify his claims or debunk his claims. The person I don't want to go too deep into details if anybody's scared away, but this is the first episode. So I think it's good foundational information for the Foundation, that she is on a world where it's highly religious. They ban science essentially, but she has entered the competition and she won. She solved this math equation and she goes to join him. And it just takes you down this road of where we're going. It's really good.
Wow. Okay. You got me intrigued. I'll say that.
It's really good. The whole season is over. I don't know if there will be another season, but it's an Apple TV Plus. They seem to be good partners with supporting these ideas with a good budget. Looks fantastic. It's really cool. I like it. This reminds me more of like The Expanse in its scientific approach than say like a Star Wars or Star Trek.
It's another show I need to.
Chris, if there's any show you need to watch, it's The Expanse.
Okay.
Get everything else thrown in the garbage. Watch The Expanse.
Throw everything out. Yeah.
The Expanse is a first slow season, but once you get into it, the characters, you're like, I just can't stop watching.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, that is it, folks. We covered a lot. Hopefully you have found something you like here. Hopefully, we didn't spoil too much. But if there's anything you have a comment on that we have been watching, or there's something we should be watching, let us know. So, Chris, I think we're ready to ditch the Geek Easy. We've paid our waiters. Now we're going to take a small plane on an intercontinental voyage to the Thunderdome. So let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants been gathered for a topic of game to be entertained. And this week, we're doing something a little bit more constrained. We have a guest, and to get to know him a little bit better, I put the question to him, what is one of his favorite things? Why does he love it? And why should you love it? So we're going to start now, Chris. Tell me, what is one of your favorite things?
Well, one of my favorite things is a movie that apparently not many people watch, and you really should watch it because it is so good. And it is the movie The Nice Guys. And this movie had Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling as two private eyes that were it's based in the 1970s Los Angeles, and they're trying to they're investigating a missing girl, and hijinks ensue. And if you don't know, this movie was also directed by Shane Black, who did some amazing stuff, such as like he wrote Predator, he wrote, and he also did like the Lethal Weapon series, and another great movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, with Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer. So like he's done some really cool stuff, and his writing is just so good.
He did Iron Man 3 or 2, didn't he?
Yes, he did do Iron Man 3, which a lot of people hate on, but I enjoyed it for what it was. And
he knows buddy cops, apparently.
He does.
Like,
he does.
Yeah.
He's, and like The Last Boy Scout, he did that too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's like he's again, like he knows this genre, and he knows how to do it so well. And I think this is like probably his best version of it. And I just like there's just so much about this like that just works. Like Russell Crowe, he plays like the straight guy in this, but he does it like everything about this movie just is like the style of it, like 70s. So you got all that the thematics of like the wardrobe and the cars and like the music. It's such a good time, and it can get a little dark here and there because of course it involves the porn industry as well, and so there's all that stuff. And it's just like everyone does it's like everyone does their part in making this movie what it is, but unfortunately no one watched it, and that's why it just bombed in the box office. And there was supposedly there was a plan to do like spin-off like sequels and stuff like that, but it just didn't pan out, which is unfortunate.
So how did you first discover the film?
Back then I was like I was really into I don't know if you remember, like Apple and QuickTime had the trailers like page that they would have.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to find it on there one day, and I was like, what is this? This looks interesting. And I clicked on it and watched the trailer. I was like, okay, cool, Shane Black, I'm in. And I watched it, and it was friggin' fantastic. Like like I said, like this is a movie that I will at least watch once a year, just rewatch it because it's just so good. It's so well done. And again, like Ryan Gosling, he's really funny in this movie too. He plays like a recovering alcoholic private investigator, and he's just such a goofy character. And yeah, even the mystery that's happening in it, like the way that Black wrote the movie is like just the weaving and the ins and outs of it. It's just, I can't. You need to watch it, Todd. You need to watch it. It's just good. It's only, what is it, 2 hours of your time. I'm not asking you to go through an entire universe.
There's no trilogy. There's no extended universe.
There's nothing. I mean, maybe in a way that's good. In a way, it's good because then it's self-contained. You don't have to worry about it. But at the same time, it's like it makes me feel bad because I'm like, oh, there could have been so much more that could have happened in this series, or potential series. So.
It's so funny because when you mentioned it and you said The Nice Guys, first my mind went to that movie with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Oh yes, yes.
And that's the other guy. So I'm like, okay,
guys.
crap. Now I've got my mind. I'm like, okay, have I? And I'm trying to think of like, have I seen anything about this movie? And I'm like, I think I've seen a trailer or a clip where it's like Ryan Gosling getting the crap beat out of him by Russell Crowe, where he's like I guess the old tenured like private
He's
dick
like the enforcer. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, like this looks interesting, but it definitely seems like a tough sell. Like at the time, like I don't know what else was happening around it. Like why didn't it do well? So let's go a little deeper in this, Chris. Why do you think this didn't do well? Was it bad marketing? Were there other movies at the time that took away from it? What was like kind of the thing that made this movie not it's kind of like most cult films, like why didn't it work at the time but it still is a good movie to watch?
That's a good question. I don't know what else came out. Like I have to look at I'm
gonna do some Googling and I'll just keep talking about that because I'll tell you what happened out when it came out.
I mean it was a summer movie and it wasn't like I don't want to say it's like that action packed. There's some action in it, but I don't know. It's like it didn't seem like a regular blockbuster movie. But it was just it's hard to say because I think the same thing happened with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, another movie where Shane Black did, and it kind of was fine, but then kind of just faded away. But I don't know. I think people were just really into just I think Fast and Furious was still happening. I mean, it is still happening. What am I saying? It's still going. So there's all those like, and Transformers, I think at the time too. So it's all these like crazy, like just adrenaline movies were there. Whereas this is just kind of like more cerebral, I guess. And, so my only thought was like, yeah, maybe there was some really bad marketing at the time, but I mean, I happened to catch the trailer and I thought the trailer was enough for me to get hooked on it. I'm not sure. It's one of those like that just kind of got swept under the rug for whatever else was like, maybe it got sandwiched with some other big movies that were happening at that time.
Probably one of the problems was it was when the Winter Soldier came out.
There you go. See, there you go.
It made like $26 million, this movie. So I'm like, I think that's part of the problem. I think a lot of people are worried about the MCU at the time was like, it just destroys anything else that comes out on. And I'm like thinking, to your point, this seems like a movie I would enjoy. So I'm going to put it on my radar now that you recommended it, which is great. I think that's the whole thing of like rediscovering movies. Why didn't they work? Why did they become cult hits? A lot of movies, that's a common tale. It is interesting though. It's like, why did studios think this is the movie that should be out in the summer? We know there's dead zones of the calendar.
Yeah.
January, February, May, like depending on when you have things, but like September after all the summer movies are out, October, November. I mean, there's plenty of times when you can put a movie like this and it'll find an audience.
Yeah.
But putting it out there during like hoping it maybe becomes that movie, the little movie that could,
right,
is a fool's errand. I mean, and the leads in this, while they're notable, I don't think they're box office draws. So maybe that's another problem too. But I mean, yeah, in the IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes are all good for this movie. It's a shame.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's like, it's under 2 hours. And like I just saw it's an hour and 56 minutes, and it's well worth the hour and 56 minutes of your time. It's just a good time there, and a good story because like you again, like your Ryan Gosling's characters. Like,
it's an R-rated movie too, right?
R-rated movie, yeah.
So that could potentially be like that audience. R-rated movies. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find an audience, especially if it's not like a hardcore like horror or something like that. Like an R-rated like buddy cop movie. We don't get many of those anymore, like a Die Hard or things like that. They're always like PG-13 now.
It's true, because they want to get as many people watching it. So.
Interesting. So I'm going to look and see where to do a public service announcement for you, Chris. Where can the Nice Guys be watched currently? And maybe our eyes can pay back to the studio to say you should watch this. So it's currently on Netflix to watch for free.
Yeah. Well,
folks. Yeah. Well, if you're a subscriber, but you can even like rent it for like $4 on all the services. You can buy it for $12. Maybe you know somebody who owns a movie. Just borrow it from library. Go there.
Well worth the $4. I will say, because like, you can't. At this point you can't even buy I think a coffee for $4. So
not a good coffee, Chris.
Not a good coffee.
Not necessarily, unless you're a barbarian and will drink the slosh from like a roadside stand or something. Come on.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm the guy that didn't see Creed 1 or Creed 2 at the box office when they were there. So I'm not a great person for supporting films when they're out in the box office, but I will watch this though. I am excited. You've convinced me, and I am going to join the crew of the Nice Guys.
Yes. I'm eager to hear what you think about this movie. It is good though.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. This is a fun segment. I think we can keep doing what's your favorite? And then this is just a way to get people into it, and we will get people more interested into things that are good that not everybody watches. Well, very good, Chris. So thank you for joining us, Chris. But tell people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Well, Todd, as always, I appreciate you having me on the show, and where they can find me, I'm on Twitter at TC1H1D. We also have a TikTok at TC1H1D. I'm trying to be more diligent about posting content there, but it's hard, man. Video editing is hard. Mm-hmm. And we have our podcast, 1 Hour, 1 Decision, and we are on most, if not all, podcasting platforms like Apple, Spotify, where Google, etc. So check us out. We got well over 100 episodes. We're trying to catch up to you guys with your 400 or so, but we've crossed the 100. So we are a gaming podcast. Tom and myself, my co-host. So yeah, and again, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a blast, folks. Listen to their podcast. They pick one game, they play it for an hour, they make a decision on it. And I think it's a great way to approach gaming, and you'll get more quantified on if it's something you're interested in or if you're not. So, yes. Yeah. It's been great, Chris. We've known each other for quite some time now. This has been great. I'm so glad we have forged this friendship, and thank you for being a nerd and talking with me about all these geeky things.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. Well, for me, I'm at Teoxtra. I talk about all things sports, whatever, on the interwebs. So follow me there if you want my personal opinion about things. And I'm typically wrong, but that's okay. But if you want all the official stuff, at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Follow us there for our most up-to-date dates on all of our content releases. Then go to our website for all things Secret Friends Unite, which is our podcast and also our video feed. Then go to YouTube, subscribe, join us, comment, and let us know what you love there. We're on all podcasts, so go there as well. But our biggest thing, obviously, recently is our Discord. We're having a good time discussing, enjoying the world of nerd there with all our friends. And then check out Patreon, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, and check out our Patreon. Even if you don't want to subscribe, just let people know it's there, and they can subscribe and support us and keep this content flowing. After 400 plus years, we're still kicking. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. It's a journey. You've joined us. You've made people smarter. So we appreciate you for doing that. And as always, folks, remember, it's always better to, oh God, I was going to do co-op mode there. Oh my God, Charles is going to kill me. We'll have to re-edit that. And remember, folks, be the hero, not the villain.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server. or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.